Great. So I think we are live here today. I'm here today with two amazing HR leaders, Matthias and Katrien. And we are excited to talk about a topic that is very close to my heart. We already wrote a very nice article about it called The Untold Challenges of Burnout for HR Leaders. And I prepared a little bit for this session today. And I want to start with an unsettling number, which is 98% of HR professionals are burned out. This is a recent study was also published on Forbes, and I will send a follow-up later with the link to the source. But we know that HR professionals are not just managing resources. They're really the architects of organizational culture, guardians of employee well-being, strategists for workforce planning, and in my eyes, also really the heart of an organization. However, in today's economic climate, this has become really a daunting task. So I want to start talking a little bit what happened the last 4 years. It's when the WHO declared that COVID-19 is a pandemic, right? It's actually this month, 4 years ago. It was kind of clear that it's going to have an impact which would be felt for years to come. And since then, the world and companies overall have adjusted dramatically to all kinds of challenges. Countries and companies plunged in and out of lockdown. We had the mask wearing thing, we had the self-testing, which was part of daily life, and many lost their jobs, or even worse, direct family members, in an extreme isolated way, unimaginable before. And then 2 years ago, you know, the Russia invasion to Ukraine, and since then Russia launched thousands of missiles, drones, and rockets to civilian infrastructure. And of course, this invasion had enormous implications yet again on the global peace and economic stability, leading to rising inflation, deglobalization, poverty in some cases, supply chain disruptions, energy crisis, you name it. The list can go on and go on. And we've seen several studies recently, and even from my conversations with leaders worldwide, that show increases in stress and anxiety among US and European adults in particular, with some experience and symptoms of post-traumatic stress, such as increase in feeling of moodiness, difficulty sleeping and concentrating, irritability, anxiety, among other symptoms. Then already, you know, to add to that, last year in the tech industry where we're working mainly, the venture bank SVB went bankrupt overnight. Many startups scrambling over their money and feeling the worst. Then OpenAI, the release of this groundbreaking ChatGPT to the world, adding to an already hyper uncertain situation, more fear of in the market for job losses, especially for knowledge workers, tech companies needing to yet again adapt to this new economical environment, integrating AI, when we still have no clue what impact this may have on mental health. So it might not be surprising to hear that sad truth, 98% of HR professionals are burned out, according to the study. And as you can see from my summary, the past 4 years have been incredibly stressful for everyone. And today, I would like to openly discuss the effect on HR leaders in particular, and what we can do to help each other. So I would like to do that with two people here today. I have worked with for many years. Katrien, former CHRO turned leadership coach, mostly in tech, who wants to have a meaningful impact at scale. Katrien, maybe you can introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Franziska. And first of all, thank you for inviting me into this conversation. It is a very important topic and one that I also have some personal experience with, of course. in my former capacity of HR leader, but definitely also an insight into how others deal with that now that I'm coaching people. So I'm looking forward to sharing those perspectives today.
Thank you. Very excited. And Matthias Mittelsten Scheid, he's an HR consultant, also someone I worked with for many years. He's a coach and a former VP Global Talent and Culture. Matthias, please also introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, thanks also very much for inviting me to this conversation. So hi everyone, I'm Matthias. I'm passionate in any people topic that are out there in organizations. On the one hand, yes, I'm a consultant and I'm accompanying organization when it's going up and they are scaling. But on the other hand, even more actual right now when they have to restructure their companies. And why do I am part of this panel? I can just think about it. I think the highest value that I see in organizations is a human within the employee. And today we are looking into the insights of how we can take care about this even more.
Indeed, great. Thanks for being here. On my end, I'm Franziska. I'm one of Key Search partners focusing on C-level board and diversity hires in the US and Europe. I have about 15 years experience in building digital practices for international executive search firms, and I am lucky to work with some of the world's most exciting and successful innovative tech companies. And I'm passionate about anything new in technology, leadership in teal organizations, holacratic systems, diversity and board governance, and building long-lasting relationships with HR leaders and C-level people is really the essence of our business, and hence why I'm particularly concerned about this topic as I hear it from my daily practice. Great. Well, let me start with the first topic. I would like to start with the evolving role of CHROs and their current challenges. So, Katrien, I would love, given that you are a former CHRO, it would be amazing to hear from you the changing role of CHROs beyond the traditional responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. Well, so in my long career, probably too long, as HR leader, I've definitely seen the role evolve from a more operational focus, just making sure that everything works and, you know, all the hygiene factors that we would now call them, that people just expect to be there, to really being stewards of the organizational culture. That, to me, is where the primary value lies of CHROs, and there's probably others that Matthias can shed a light on, but I'm going to focus on really that role of stewards of the organizational culture, because increasingly the culture needs to address that expectation that people have, like you already said in the introduction. There's the expectation to be treated as a person, as a human with a life, and to be treated with genuine care, which comes with its own challenges. And how do you build that into the systems of the organization, and also into the awareness of leaders who haven't grown up with that and are now having to just do it? And it's not always an obvious thing, that people don't always have the awareness or the skills to do that. So building that awareness and upskilling falls to the CHROs. But at the same time, if you're going to steward an organizational culture, you have to role model it. And basically everyone is always looking at you to see what that looks like in practice. And do you live what do you practice what you preach? So that means that CHROs are actually always on. And I think that's where the crux of the burnout for CHROs probably largely comes from.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, be treated with genuine care, be role models, be always in the spotlight. I can imagine that is extremely stressful for HR leaders, and yeah, really teaching teaching what you're preaching. Matthias, from your perspective, can you add any insights on the added pressures from those recent events like the pandemic and this economical crisis?
Yes, I I think I can do so. So, Katrien, it's quite nice. So you were focusing on the person itself and the role that changed. So what is the environment that this person is acting in? That is the thing that has changed due to the events that you just mentioned. So I think in the years before, we have always been loaded up and confronted with individual psychological challenges. But right now, after these 3 years, pandemic, crisis, inflation, economic, so everything has changed, and the overall level of psychological load on each of our employees has been increased. So, but in the same time, the pressure is also on the business side. Yeah, we have got more efficiency that is more in the focus. We have got less investments into companies. So we have got two factors that have been changed that are now conflicting with each other. So what does it mean? On the one hand, we have got less capacities for an increased need. So empathy is fighting against efficiency. And the other thing is that the people centricity that has increased, luckily, in the decades before, is now going to push back and has to move back due to the higher prioritized business needs. So I would say the consequence here is that the leaders, the CHROs, head of HRs, or however they are called, I think they have still the passion to support people first before they care about themselves, because they love to keep this service level that high, and they don't want to cut on their own end. And this is where we are now in. That is a challenge that we are facing.
Yeah. Do you, so as we are talking about very specific stress around burnouts in CHROs or like HR leaders overall, Katrien, can you tell us, the common signs of burnout and its impact on decision-making and job satisfaction?
Yes, and it's very critical that we do focus on that, but we have a look at it, because you can actually, if you spot them in time, you can stop that burnout from really spiraling out of control if you recognize them quickly enough. So this really is, I suppose you talk about near burnout when people are feeling exhausted all the time, like persistently really tired, fatigued, even overwhelmed. It could be difficult to admit, but it really is that kind of a feeling of so much coming in that it almost doesn't matter anymore whether you work another day or not, because the mountain is so big. So that kind of feeling, but also very much difficulty focusing because there is so much coming towards you. So what do you focus on? You might just feel many things and find it difficult to decide what you should be focusing on. Decline in job satisfaction, so people can feel an increasing sense of futility, that sense of there is so much anyway, so it doesn't really matter whether I do something or not. It doesn't seem to shift any bricks. Tomorrow is just as bad as today, which can also make them detached from the people around them, both at work, your team, your colleagues, so the people that really can keep you grounded there. Sometimes even in your personal relationships, your family will tell you first if you seem a little bit less there for them, perhaps, but really a sense of detachment, and sometimes a bit of cynicism can creep in. So now the tricky thing is that HR leaders are expected to be attuned to all of these signs in other people, and they will be leading the awareness building in other leaders in the business and amongst employees to spot this in their teams, spot this in their colleagues. But it's much more difficult to notice it in yourself, unfortunately. So we'll pick that up later, but really it's critical that at least we surround ourselves with people who might be able to see those signs and alert us to them if we can't see it ourselves, which by and large, it's very difficult to do.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing those signs. I think that is useful for people realizing it as well. You mentioned something also apart from the exhaustion, feeling overwhelmed and detached from the people around you. Kind of the impact on the decision making, that maybe you don't even care, or you're just incapable.
But it can be a sense of almost being frozen, and you can go into inaction out of sheer inability to make a decision. Because I'm not sure if people fully understand what it is like when you're nearing burnout. It's not a state of I am interested in my work or not interested in my work. It's kind of a gray zone I don't know if it's in the middle, but it's a non-thing. It's neither interested nor disinterested. It's neither engaged or disengaged. It's kind of numb. So once you reach that stage, you can still turn it back if you pick up the signs, and that's why we're talking about it today.
And probably allow me to jump in. Probably many of the people in the audience know this famous video that has been recorded, I think, on an Irish football club, where you have got these two fans sitting next to each other, and they're always focusing on the sad person and showing the sad person again and talking about how he feels and what pressure is on his shoulders. And at the end of the video, the lucky person is shifting away. So we shouldn't think that a burnout is on the person that is sad or that looks bad or sick. It might be the person that is giving a great show. And that is a relationship to the person that allows you to identify the real human behind it and the real face.
That's also a bit the scary part of it, right? That you think it's a sad person, you believe that, all right, I'm feeling exhausted, but it is so much more, and it's a very gray. I can also relate to some of the signs out of experience, also to talking to people. I think the better we know each other, like oneself or the people surrounding you, the more they can see those signs, even though you're putting on the show. All right. As you mentioned, Katrien, we would love to find out strategies today on navigating the burnout, if you see some of it. And it doesn't need to be burnout. It can be all of these different gray layers we're just discovering. But Matthias, how could CHROs align the HR initiatives with the organizational goals and then communicate effectively with the CEOs so CHROs can navigate around it, let's say?
Yeah. So I also have led HR teams for more than a decade, and I don't want to sound now like a teacher. What I'm talking about is more about what I identified for myself. And I also have to say, I haven't been always good in it. It's a real challenge. So when we are talking about the last part that you asked me, how can we communicate with each other? I think we need to start at the bottom of the solution process. And that is exactly what we talked about before. That's a relationship between two humans. So the CEO and the HR leader. And when you're talking about critical business goals, and on the other side, you have got ethical benchmarks. There's a fight within these two persons where no one is wrong, where everybody is right. It's like positive psychology. And here we need to find a way through this tunnel of two interests. So that's why my recommendations are here. On the one hand, so I'm talking now to the HR leaders. So strengthen your self-confidence, because you are hired to be what you are. You are hired for the ethic that you brought. And ethics are on a higher level than business goals. So I thought both topics are right, but when we are thinking as humans, ethics are more higher than business goals, in my opinion. So if you are breaking now down your own ethical benchmarks, you will increase the psychological load on your shoulders. And it's of course, in these discussions with your CEO, it's always a give and take. We cannot build the dream in a realistic business world. That's what I also have to accept, but only until a certain level, I would say. And if you are there self-confident enough, you can bring much better arguments for long-term perspective that finally will matter. And that is what you need. This is where you need to bring the understanding to your CEO. The second thing is, just being strong and self-confident, that's not the key. So someone always needs to allow you to open the door with this key that you just trained, I would say. So what do I mean with this picture? It's about invest into the relationship with your CEO. Only if he or she empowers you to speak up, someone is listening to you. And that is the chance to really get the change starts. So for example, these days, as I said, unfortunately, as we are in a crisis, I'm accompanying companies in headcount reductions, in restructuring phases. And that might be unavoidable. And that might be the best next step for the whole company. But even that we are talking about these critical events, it is the how that makes it different. And that depends on the relationship between the person who leads the project and the final decision maker, the CEO.
Yeah, there's a saying or quote about the most exciting breakthroughs of the 21st century will not be just because of technology, but really about an expanding on the concept of what it means to be humans, those relationships you're talking about. I think knowing your ethical benchmarks, your values is super crucial and helps you gaining that self-confidence because you know who you are, right? And I think it's a very good advice, Matthias. Any other HR initiatives, remote work? I'm throwing that in there now, but this remote situation as well, is that adding to the challenge of communication, building that relationship with your key stakeholder, the CEO?
I wouldn't say so. So I think it's a nice excuse that we are using these days for just justifying why something is getting worse. So let's talk about all these wonderful couples out there where the one partner is living in Paris and the other one is living in Madrid over years, and they're happy. So they can sing a song about how it goes, even if you are divided by kilometers. So I think so we can do in the business as well. It's just a business. It's not about love. So what they can do in love, we should be able to do it in business. I think we need to look a bit further. The organizational development shows us options that organizations can tend to. So talking about these most fanciest organizational types, like living organizations, where we are talking about deleting hierarchies, deleting top-down communication, where everything is based on an overall intrinsic motivation of every single partner within this organization, where we are all on an equal level. I know that is fancy and there are pros and cons, and I don't know if it will survive. Let's see what the future will bring. But I think we are just starting to live some of the aspects, to, for example, hand over tasks where we think that we need to do as HR leaders to our teams. Lowering our workload will automatically also lower our psychological load. And this is also depends on trust. We can cry here and we can say, hey, my boss is not trusting me. But we should always ask ourselves, how much do we trust our people that can help us tomorrow?
Right. And Katrien, what do you think about the role of mentorships or peer support networks, and the importance of mental well-being?
Well, I think we're really getting into territory then of what can you deploy as strategies to navigate this whole struggle, or the core of what we're talking about today. We've been talking a lot about that connectedness and relationships of trust. So I think this is really where I see those coming in. So ideally at work, you do have a trusted person. It can be your CEO if you're a CHRO. It can be a fellow executive or a mentor, either within your business or outside, or even a coach if you don't have any of those. Somebody that actually will, I suppose, share back with you when they notice signs in yourself, and somebody that you can kind of also offload to a little bit, because you don't want to do that inappropriately. But if you can do it with someone who understands the business, and understands you, it's incredibly helpful. And then peer networks, that is really about giving you a sense of you're not alone in this. Because if you talk to your fellow HR leaders, then most likely you'll discover that they have very similar challenges. They can recognize what you're going through. You can, I suppose, maybe even get some ideas from them. But if nothing else, just know that this is not just you. It's part of the CHRO condition at this point in time. To have these kinds of challenges can already be an incredible relief. So on that note, then a third element I would bring in is to get some perspective. So I think, Matthias, you've also been talking about that. It's taking a step back, freeing yourself up sometime, even if it's just for a very brief few minutes, or if you book just a quarter of an hour's thinking time, just to take that step back from the workload. Workload won't go away, unfortunately, for those 15 minutes, but also it's not going to make a difference. So your work won't get more, but you will actually get better at managing it if you just take a little bit of a step back, get perspective. So otherwise you can't see the wood for the trees. So you need to do that, but you can't do it when you're under the tree, then you can't see the next tree. So you just have to get on the edge of the wood so that you can see the individual trees in there, and then you can get a better look at what actually is going to be important, what actually is going to move bricks, what deserves your attention, what can wait or be shifted to your team, as you were saying earlier. And a last thing that I want to say is that you will have to accept, and this may be a tough one for some HR leaders more than others, but accept that actually it is a business imperative that you manage yourself, because we've been referencing this tendency that many HR leaders have to serve everyone else first. They have to look after everyone else's needs, and there are many, because they come from all across the organization towards you. We are typically people, and we want to serve everyone else, and we can therefore not attend to our own needs. That's what causes depletion. But you have to, as an HR leader, if we've said that you are the steward of the organizational culture, you are a role model, then you have to manage your own energies. You have to just do that. So accept that as a business need rather than a selfish thing, because it isn't.
Yes. I think that is a very good advice, this taking a step back, have perspective. I think there's a lot of things also around meditation, changing environment, right, that can help with that mental well-being in order to allow you to take that step back.
Well, ideally, yes. So, I mean, I obviously also have done a lot of work with people on helping them do that, and it's probably a little bit too deep or too elaborate for this conversation today. But yeah, how do you take a step back? Well, by first of all, of course, clearing a little bit of time in your diary, either planned or however you work on that. But yes, how do you create headspace? Some people meditate, others can sit at their desk and just, I don't know, take a couple of breaths to slow themselves down. It's the important thing is to just still whatever goes on in your head a little bit, so that you can see the thoughts without being blown away by them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. And there were several times we talked about trust and building those relationships, and there are a lot of books about psychological safety, about creating that safe space in organizations. And I'm learning a lot about this right now, and I would love to explore further this need for a supportive environment and trust in the HR function. Katrien, can you discuss the role of psychological safety for HR leaders? Is it a lonely space as an HR, you mentioned as well, or that creating those relationships, because maybe you have that tendency to serve others and you're like alone, and there's a lot of confidential knowledge you have and legal responsibilities as well. Maybe you can share some, discuss the role of psychological safety for HR leaders.
Sure. Well, let me just start by, I suppose, reminding ourselves, I don't know how familiar everyone in the audience is with the concept, but it is, well, a psychologically safe environment is one where people believe that they won't be punished or humiliated, exposed for suggesting ideas, asking questions, maybe even making a mistake, that can actually be accepted. It happens. That's Amy Edmondson's definition, as best I can reproduce it. So research has shown that it is the number one factor in team effectiveness. So it matters, which is why I think HR leaders have now for quite a few years been leading, again, skill building in that area among leaders who haven't probably been focusing on that in the past. And that means, again, building a relationship of trust for leaders with their teams, with each other as well, being open, not defensive when they get questions. And I can tell you that's difficult for a lot of people, that not getting defensive, because for many years we've been trained to appear competent and confident, and it's not always what's needed. Sometimes you just want to be curious and listen to what people are suggesting. Now, for obviously the people and culture function, it's particularly imperative that everyone in the organization trusts them, because they deal with people's most personal data as far as business takes that data on board. So they have to be trusted. And if there is any issue or any sensitive relationship concern that employees have, where else do they go with it? Without going to ethics hotlines, etc. You would like that to be the people and organizational culture function. So again, they have to build it, but this is where, if CHROs become burnt out, we've talked about a sense of detachment and overwhelm, tiredness. It's very difficult to project that authentic self as an open and engaging, relatable person that you need to build psychological trust and safety when you're feeling detached from other people. So that's why it really is imperative that HR leaders manage that, so that they can continue to build and lead the drive for psychological safety in companies.
Yes, very, very important, right? Matthias, how do you think companies can create that trust across the organization? And what role do the CHROs have in this process?
I think it's once more about these relationships, but this time under a different aspect, because relationships are based on real feelings, and real feelings means that you need to be authentic, and being authentic is a kind of skill. It's a personal thing. I would say everybody can be authentic. It's a basis of being humans. So it's a potential that already lies in us. But what matters and what is the winning or the KO criteria is the environment. We try to show the skill. So the question is, if we are allowed as HR leaders or employees to show this feeling in our environment. And I think here, many of this target group don't feel invited to do so. So it's something that starts definitely top down. The top management needs to be the first that show vulnerability. And in that moment they show it, the landslide starts to roll and to roll and to get bigger and to catch everyone within this organization. So if the top management starts to create a great feedback and failure culture, then we have it. And so probably summing it a bit up, so trust is an element between humans. It's not a program that can be initiated. It's not a poster that you can pin on a wall. So I would say for all the HR leads out there, it's again about the relationships. So start today to foster the relationship with top management to be able to speak as humans between each other. And then you can create an understanding of what I've mentioned in my answers before. Because, you know, every manager out there, we and the CEOs, we can all play a role in a big game, in a big show. But what really matters is what's happening behind the curtain. And that is the stage that we need to enter. And that stage is called humanity.
I like the fact that...
Sorry. No, I was just going to add, I think that's exactly where the CHRO role has evolved to, you know, that I suppose coaching role in a way to help leaders with that role that, you know, because I completely agree that it's the top that needs to show these behaviors, but they're not necessarily born with them either. And yeah, it's a change, I think, for HR leaders that they have to invest, like you said, the effort in that direction.
Yes, and it's a leadership team, right? Be it CHO, CEO, that C-level, the leadership team overall, showing that vulnerability. So again, playing the role model. But what if, you know, it's like parents, if they fight, if they are not aligned, if they are not vulnerable between each other, how can they show that to the rest of the company, right? I think that's very important to start with the leadership team. Yeah.
And also to make it even more practical, I'm seeing just the first names of the people here in the audience, but I'm guessing there's one person that has worked with me very close together, and we have went through a storm of a restructuring. And believe me, neither one of our eyes stayed dry in this phase. And it is something that also in that moment cost me power and caused in me fears. I didn't know how probably the audience, my team, felt when I really felt that my water is going higher and higher. But it is just something, you know, that is on the one hand where you show humanity, but that is also the moment where you feel you have invested into your team before, and now you're allowed to be what you are. And that is then just relaxation in that moment and not psychological load. And that is the stage where we need to go to.
Oh yeah, I like already that you're sharing some personal stories, because I think those are, you know, and I'm sure everybody in the audience has also this, all kind of different situations. Can we maybe share more stories, more insights? Also, maybe Katrien, do you have any insights on the importance of focusing on impactful actions, maintaining these energy levels? Matthias just called it about relaxation, showing your emotions. Do you have any advice or stories from your end?
Yeah, well, I definitely recognize what Matthias was just talking about, because in my own experience, it's definitely been a breaking point when the emotions weren't, it wasn't okay to share them. They weren't landing anywhere. Then that's where the detachment happens. That's where it breaks down. But also in that, moments or the feeling of overwhelm, if you can't share it, I mean, ideally it's okay, but if you can't share it, then, and you have to help yourself, because, well, I mean, ultimately you have to, even if other people are helping you, what you can do, regardless of who is around you, again, is to just create a moment of quiet in your head by just stepping away, even if it's just 5 minutes from your busyness, to ask yourself, what is, I get too much, I can't do everything. So what is the one thing that's going to have the most impact? And then do that. It also means that you accept that other things will have to wait. And again, that's sometimes the most difficult thing. Most people know, if you really think about what is the one thing that's going to make the most difference right now, and then can you accept that you're not going to do those other 5,000 other things right now? Maybe you'll get to them, maybe they'll just disappear, but not right now. So it gives you a sense of control again, because you've decided what you're going to do, what you're going to focus on, which then, it gives you the focus because you've chosen it. It means also that you're actually moving forward again. You're no longer suspended wondering, I can't decide what I'm going to do, but you're actually moving forward with one thing, which is better than being frozen and not making any decisions at all. So you want to make a good decision, not just do something to be, getting through your list. You want to make a good decision. And for that, you just need to clear a little bit of space in your head.
Yeah. At the beginning, Matthias mentioned also that knowing your ethical benchmark, knowing your values, right? Know who you are, and creating that moments of quietness. There's a lot of offsites happening these days, I find, with companies. Taking that moment in different environment, clearing that head. But if you can't make it at a company leadership level, potentially take it for yourself. Make that decision because you know who you are and that you need that at that moment, and the work can stay, at the company. The company will not go down if you're not there a day or something like this. I also find that, burnout in the sense of you can tell a little bit when there's sick days coming up, right? If you're taking more and more time off, but in a bad way. I think that was also something we discussed earlier.
Yeah, sometimes, but not always. It's like the story you were sharing earlier about, it's not always the sad person or the sick person. Sometimes people keep going until they break, and that doesn't necessarily show up.
And Matthias, from your end, can you offer more perspectives on empowering HR through support, coaching, professional development?
Yeah, probably first out of the perspective of being a coachee by myself. So my first coach, the former CHRO of the Citibank, he told me, and he has still this quote on his website, it's getting lonely at the top. And that is, I think, where many of us find ourselves in. So we are doing something, and we don't know if it's good or bad, if we are right or wrong, if we are the only one that are facing these challenges, or if there are much more out there that have the same problems. So that's why, and that is also a question Alexander is asking here in the chat, if there's a psychological support for CHROs and leaders. So answering it first, what you can do by yourself, I would say, on the first thing, you can start to network. It sounds quite simple, but I would like to give a tip that you can really start doing tomorrow. Because if you network, you're exchanging on a peer level. And there you can evaluate yourself in this diagram. Right now, today, you only have one dot. You don't know if you're good or bad or left or right. But if you see where others are, you can measure against others in a positive way. You find that what you think is probably not sufficient or enough or right is much better than others do. You can see that others have the same challenges, and you can just ask them and you can learn from them. And then tomorrow you can work on it. Or you just get this appreciation, this great answer. Wow, that's cool what you have done. I haven't ever thought about it. And with this feedback from your peer level, it fills up your batteries. Of course, even better if you're finding out there while networking a mentor that is just strengthening you in your self-confidence and keeping an eye on you and saying, trust yourself, what you do is the right thing. The other thing, and that's why I was mentioning my coach, I was also looking for a coach, because it's not about coach and couch, two different things, but sometimes it feels like lying on this couch, it is on the one hand, of course, a ventil. After 60 minutes, you have just talked about what you think by yourself and you just feel better. But coaching in real is about enabling you to work with the potential in you. And what Katrien mentioned is, when you have more and more this psychological load, it's like sand on your skills. You don't find them. You cannot use them anymore. And this coach is helping you to bring them up to the surface and to work again what is already in you. And that is a pity thing. If we are allowing in organizations that people are being under the pressure of psychological load, it's stupid, because we lose greatness in them. And that's why I would really say, what you can do by yourself, trust yourself. Say to yourself in the morning, you are great. And the classical sentence that you also find when it is about yoga or so, it's you are enough.
Very good words, very good words. And that is also very good into the conclusion. I think we're almost at the end, and I just wanted to take a moment to say thanks for your insights, for your advice. Maybe there are more questions coming. But I think it's safe to say that the HR leadership role is set to evolve even further. We're going to face more and more new challenges and opportunities as well. And it will require us to be agile and adaptable like never before. And, with AI, it's going so fast, it's crazy. So there's this really important thing that we need to know as CHROs or HR leaders, people leaders, is that if CHROs and HR leaders are burned out, we won't be able to navigate these uncertain waters effectively. So I think it's a matter of our own well-being and that of the whole organization as well. And we need to acknowledge the existence of burnout. Otherwise, we won't be able to navigate those waters. We need to acknowledge its existence, break the stigma. That's why I'm very happy that you chose to spend the time with me to talk about it. Create a safe space for open conversations about those pressures. I want to highlight that it's not exclusive to HR leaders. We all know that. It has all kind of different forms and affects many, many more functions and people overall. And by coming together like this and sharing our experiences, we can not only help ourselves, but really the whole organization. And that's ultimately what we're interested in as well, right? And it's about building an understanding. It lifts us all up, one where we can be heard and trusted and mutually respected by the businesses. And that is really a fundamental part of the equation. So I'm so glad that here with you, Matthias and Katrien, we could highlight this importance and also the importance of, I think this is just one of the discussions we're having, but I just want to highlight this is an ongoing conversation about CHRO well-being and organizational health overall. Yeah. I see, Matthias, you also shared something here in the chat. Yeah, that's a study we posted as well in the article, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to expand the perspective because we have talked about, or I was focusing a lot about what the person itself can do. But in my article, I think I also added what the organization can do, that you ask for. And the things I'm mentioning there is really about these mental health check-ins. It's about an open dialogue culture. It's about really investing into the HR support systems. My article has been liked by Nilo Health. That is no advertisement. I'm not being paid for it, but there are many more out there, I guess. But for example, these elements, the funny thing is we are installing them. We are investing our budget from our departments to it, but ask the HR leaders how much courses they took from the support they are offering to their employees. Yeah, and that is something that we should realize, and that's why I'm mentioning it. It might help.
The doctors are not taking their own advice, right?
Exactly.
Do what I say, not what I do, kind of situation. Yeah. Do you have? I think we're opening up. If there's anyone who has a question, please add it to the chat function here. We've already answered. I hope we answered the question of Alexander already. If not, please add the specific question. I had one more, which is: are there any tools that can help to support burnout, like specific tools, something practical?
Well, we've talked about some of them. So definitely having a trusted person you can speak to, could be a mentor, could be a coach, somebody else at work that you can at least share your experience with is one, offloading, because talking about it in an appropriate setting helps. Taking a few minutes to clear your head, it helps calm you down, particularly if you slow your breathing while you're doing it. It helps calm your central nervous system. So you can only really do good thinking when you're calm. It's very difficult to make good decisions when you're feeling stress, adrenaline stress. It's very, very difficult. So those are a few practical things. Matthias, what would you add?
Yeah, so on the one hand, I think it starts with realizing what is happening with you. And that is something that a psychologist or a coach will train you. It is, I think, being burned out is about having a more and more getting bigger and bigger highway in your brain. More and more cars passing by and confusing you. And you have these cars at day, at night, when you wake up, when you sleep. And that's the reason probably why you can't sleep. So it's like a dream. You don't know when the dream starts. You just realize that you are dreaming. And the first skill that you need to learn is to realize that you are dreaming. The first thing is that you need to realize that the confusion is happening in your mind. And that is where you can do, I think, simple things. It is the fresh air. It is going into the garden and talking to neighbors about something different. It is about being in a community that likes you, that where you feel well. And that already helps. These are the simple things that you can do. I think we are the wrong one to give you tips on a high level. Yeah, this is where you need to look for support on another end. But this simple life, these simple things, that already helps you to find back to yourself and to concentrate on what you are. Business is very important, but let's be true. At the end, it's just a business. Your life matters much more, and you should concentrate on this. Find happiness. Look into the eyes of your daughter, of your son. Yeah, play with Lego. Yeah, find me 5:00 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, that is what helps you to come down and to focus on what really matters.
Yeah.
There's this other book about one life as well, right? A lot of times we talk about work-life balance, when in fact it's just really one life we have to manage, and we shouldn't forget that we don't have several lives. And then there's this other saying, I like it from the flight attendants, it's like, please, in emergency, put your oxygen mask on first instead of before helping others, right? Also applying to life. You can't help others if you don't have your oxygen mask on yourself. Are there any communities to support this matter that we know, that we can share here with the audience?
I mean, I'm not aware of specific burnout prevention communities. It's possible they exist. I don't know of any, but it probably comes down to peer networks. I think is probably the one community, and then more personal connections, because we've talked about detachment as one issue, and the way that you can counter that is by having meaningful connection, because ultimately you do want to reconnect with yourself. You want to feel that you matter as a person. So connect yourself with communities that give you that feeling, whether it is your neighbors or people at work or your sports club, whatever it is. If you're thinking that you don't have time for those things, then think again, because you're going to be much better off and have much better results if you're actually connected to yourself and if you feel that you matter.
I don't know if you accept this as an answer, as it is probably not a community, but artificial intelligence is probably the most modern community that many people are diving into. So yes, ChatGPT can give you a lot of answers, I would say. And probably if you're feeling burned out and you're asking these artificial intelligence, you get already tips that might work or not. I think it's not about taking medicine. Yeah, it's something about behavior. If you ask, how can you come down? How can you relax? I think you should make you should make use of it, and you should test it, because the first stage is that you're hiding yourself. You're probably not with self-confidence to talk about it, but the AI can help you in this moment without leaving the anonymous zone. But take care. So AI is not replacing coaching. AI is not replacing a doctor. I think realize what is happening in you, and then go out of your comfort zone, do it. And I can just say this personal words, trust me, you will find help if you leave this zone and if you talk about it. It's the first step that will put so much load from your shoulders just by talking without it before a person has answered.
That's actually a super great way to conclude and call to action. I saw Shruti send her LinkedIn here to connect. I hope she's open also to connect and say, she's also part of that community. Katrien, I'm sure you're open to connect with other HR leaders, to have a one-on-one space. Matthias, also a coach, he's also here to talk. And this call to action to connect on a human level, AI, when you feel like it, you have a moment, can give you, yes, I should have done that, right? Probably AI will tell you, speak to your peers, but you're so into it that you don't even take that action. So please take that action to connect with us. At KeySearch, we are always we love building relationship and connect people. And I want to really thank both of you, because I think we're running out of time for more questions. We will share the talk with Eugenia's already saying you receive an email with the speakers, the panelists, and the video recap. We will post it on YouTube, LinkedIn, so that we can share this even more. I would say thank you very much. Time to say goodbye. See our kids.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Franziska. Have a good evening. Bye-bye, Katrien.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, audience. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.